Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we're going to be doing the cult classic action, sword fighting, immortal Scottish movie, The Highlander, starring Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery. Those are just joining us for the first time. B Movie Club. I'll discuss pretty much any kind of movie, preferably comedy, horror, sci-fi, action, adventure. Nothing too heavy, nothing too boring, nothing not interesting, and frankly nothing too good. We try to steer clear of anything too critically acclaimed, anything that did too well at the box office, anything that won Academy Awards, anything by Jane Austen, anything... Pretty much anything that, some college kids would want to watch. Pretty much. Anywho, this week, we've got Highlander. Basically what it is, there are people among us who, for reasons not explained in the story, are immortal. And one of these people is Christopher Lambert playing Connor MacLeod, who was born in the 1500s in the Highlands of Scotland. And essentially, over the course of the movie, we discover that for some reason there can be only one immortal. So they go after each other, and the only way you can kill them, I know I said they're immortal, but you can evidently kill them if you chop their head off. Chop their head off, they're dead meat. And when there's only one left, that one person will receive the prize. And we don't know what the prize is. So at some point, Christopher Lambert in Scotland, his kin, his friends, figure out that he can't die. There's like some battle that goes on, and he gets stabbed. And next day he's up and around, and they're like, whoa, that doesn't sound right. So they run him off. And here comes Sean Connery playing Juan Ramirez, who's the chief metallurgist of Charles V of Spain. You heard me right. Sean Connery's playing a Spanish metallurgist. I guess they work with metal. They have the urge to work with metal. Metal urge? Okay, thank you. I'm here all week. Anyway, he shows up and tells him, guess what? You're immortal. Or as Sean Connery would say it, you're immortal. Thank you. So he teaches him the ways, explains how everything works with an immortal, how you can't die unless they, and how there can be only one. This is where it gets kind of sketchy. If there can be only one, then why is he helping him? He's just a really nice guy, I guess is what it comes down to. I can't explain it. He also warns him that there's an immortal roaming around called the Kurgan, who's from the steppes of Russia, who's the ultimate warrior. And at this point we realize that was the guy who stabbed Christopher Lambert on the battlefield earlier in the movie. He's a big, scary-looking dude, wearing like a skull helmet. He has long black hair. Not a happy guy. So anyway, he trains him to be the best swordsman he can be, and he basically tells him, because at this point Connor has gone on and has like a wife and doesn't have a family, because if you're immortal you can't have children. But Sean Connery warns him that at some point, he's going to be with her and she's going to grow old and die while he stays young, and it'll be very upsetting for him, as you might imagine. So later, Connor MacLeod is out, I guess, I don't know, doing things that they did back in the 1500s, and the Kurgan shows up looking for him, and Ramirez, Sean Connery, fends off the attack as best he can, but at the expense, he gets his own head lopped off. So there you go. It's very sad. Bye bye, Sean Connery. Modern day, okay, years later, as you might imagine, you have Christopher Lambert is now known as Russell Nash, and he runs like an antiques place. Of course, I mean, he's been around for 400 years. Pretty much everything he's collected over that time is now an antique. So there you go. And he's still having sword fights. I guess they couldn't upgrade into more modern weapons. They still have to use swords. Whatever. So at the beginning of the movie, he's having a crazy sword fight with a guy in a parking garage during a wrestling match. Chops that guy's head off. I guess he was a bad guy. Who knows? But there can be only one. And now the police are kind of checking things out. You know, they're coming after, you know, who's chopping off these heads. And of course, the Kurgan shows up, and this is in New York now. And he's going after people, chopping people's heads off. So there's a lot of head chopping, as you might imagine. Inevitably, they meet and have their battle. Along the way, Connor McLeod meets, I guess she's kind of a sword expert who works as a forensic scientist with the police. They have a little thing going on. Throughout the movie, there's little crazy flashbacks of Connor McLeod living in like revolutionary Boston, you know, back in the 1700s, and in Europe at some place during World War II. Why he's going to all these places, not fully explained. Good times. Needless to say, there's the big battle with the Kurgan and Connor, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but he wins. Yeah, Connor wins. There you go. Good times. And he receives the prize, which I don't want to spoil it for you, but I will anyway. If you haven't seen it, the movie came out in 1986. If you still haven't seen it, it is streaming on Netflix. You can check it out, but I'm going to plug your ears. He wins the prize, which means, hey, he's mortal now and can have family and, you know, can get married. And he is also psychic, I guess. He can read people's minds, which is going to help humanity. Good times. This movie actually spawned 2 sequels, a TV series on the USA Network, so you know it's good, and comic books and things like that. The first sequel came out, I want to say, 5 or 6 years later, and took place in the future. And it's basically panned because now, instead of just being immortal for unknown reasons, they're actually aliens. Yeah. The people who produced this movie tried to go back and re-edit it 5 times to make it more palatable to the Highlander fans. Didn't do much good. It was called Highlander 2, The Quickening, or as I call it, The Crappening. I don't recommend watching it. Those of you guys who've seen the movie know that Queen did the soundtrack, so it's a lot of Queen. If you like Queen, then you're in hog heaven. This is actually the 3rd movie that I've discussed on the B-Movie Club that had Queen in its soundtrack. Of course, you know Flash Gordon. But did you forget Revenge of the Nerds? In the final scene, We Are the Champions? So, there you go. It was 67% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's a total travesty. Travesty. It's a lot of fun. Again, a lot of sword fights. And it's funny because it's called The Highlander. And the guy who plays the Highlander, Christopher Lambert, not Scottish. Actually born in the United States, but moved to Switzerland when he was very, very young. And he has a crazy French accent. Swiss accent, I should say. And they had to work with him. This was the first like big budget American film that he did where he actually had to speak a lot of words. Prior to this, he was in Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan. Didn't deliver a lot of soliloquies in that one. He could get away with it. And strangely enough, the only Scottish actor in the movie, Sean Connery, plays a guy from Egypt. There you go. That's creative casting. At some point, his accent, it wasn't just accent, he could barely speak English, so he had to learn how to speak it phonetically over the course of the movie. At one point, a police officer goes, "You got a crazy accent. Where are you from?" And he says, "I'm from lots of places." Because his accent wasn't good enough to actually be all that Scottish. So I'm from lots of places. That's my Christopher Lambert accent. So there you go. Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert got on so well that they agreed to get together and work on the second one, even though they knew it was a piece of crapola. So there you go. Friendship. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed it. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote, and here it is. "You've got the manners of a goat and you smell like a dung heap." There you go. Good times. I could have gone with the Kurgan at one point, quotes Def Leppard and says it's better to burn out than fade away. But I decided to go with my Sean Connery impression. Thank you. Next week, we'll be doing Being John Malkovich. One of my all-time favorites that I know a lot of people aren't too sure about. Starring John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, and of course, John Malkovich. It is streaming instantly on Netflix. Send in your questions, comments, favorite scenes, favorite quotes to my page at YouTube, on Facebook, or at KD9575 at Twitter. Thank you very much, and be well.